anything that was thrown at me or any hardship or like painful thing that was said or done, I was able to reframe it and learn something from it and grow and then be proud of myself and like who I became. Welcome to Spiritually Hungry. We've just begun the holiday season. Who's excited? And it's marketed as the happiest time of the year.
I was reading an article yesterday in the New York Times that there are people who actually are taking like the week before to like relax and
mental health.
Yeah, there's a lot of people say, I forgot the statistics, but a lot of people view this as the most stressful time of the year.
Well, we're going to put some light on the reasons why. There's so many, actually. On the surface, of course, what's not to like? In theory, or mostly in our imagination, it's time for elaborate dinners with friends and family, gift giving and receiving, and curling up in front of the fireplace in a comfy space with slippers on. And how nice. You're off work. But like so many things, the fantasy doesn't always match reality. This time of year can be highly stressful for many of us. I don't feel stressed, though. No. I really enjoy... Look, it's what you make it, which we're going to get into. And I love baking and I love being busy with, having all the family together and playing music. And then you leave the house and other parts do get kind of
and the other
stressful.
Parts of families,
but
right?
That's where the opportunity for appreciation and growth and kindness come in. So the stressful time seems to compound around the F word, and that would be family.
Oh, we're there for a second. Our kids listen to this podcast.
I said family. And that's part of the reason, right? So maybe your life choices don't align with your parents' hopes and dreams, and you worry about criticism, right? Unspoken or overtly. Maybe you agonize over seeing a relative who shares an unsavory opinion loudly and incessantly. Or maybe there's a bit of a feud between two relatives you hope will be on their best behavior. Or there is an issue with the gathering due to an estrangement, that one person who's missing, but everybody wants to pretend like nothing is amiss. And still, one more, maybe the one who is always looking for what's wrong and brings everybody's energy down. So those are just a few of the things that happen at family gatherings or during the holidays. And I'm sure
I'm sure a lot of this also happens throughout the year. Heightened, maybe.
Yes, but I think we can avoid it often, but certainly not during this time. So today we're going to talk about ways to navigate the holidays, even amidst complicated relationships, because you can still find joy, even in the most challenging relationships, and find a way to get past any negative feelings you'll have. And we're here to help you find it.
Yeah. And what I would add to that understanding is the fact that there are no coincidences, right? First of all, the family within which you find yourself, the family dynamic within which you find yourself has a purpose.
And it's custom made for you.
Exactly, right. This idea that our soul actually chose our family, not because they're always supportive and loving, but because it is a lot of the friction created. And doesn't mean that it's necessarily good what they're doing, but the friction created is actually what's best for your own growth and development.
And we're going to give you a lot of tools and unpack.
Why don't we give them now?
Well, because I wanted to say one thing before that, which is why I said that.
Well, I actually wanted to finish my thought, though.
But you finished your thought. Did you not?
Go. No, I think that it's here's our family dynamic. No, I'm joking. I think it's very different than most people think about their family, and certainly to be able to hold that consciousness is not always easy, right? Because I think people have this false belief around family that it should be always loving. Again, best case scenario, it always is, but this is not the reality, and nor is it something we should aspire to.
Well, always loving, but also that your family owes you something, that your happiness is dependent on what they give you or what they gave you or your childhood. I think very rarely do we have a healthy perspective for what that relationship is meant to be or grow into, right? We get really stuck on focusing on lack and what's wrong rather than coming and really just appreciating that this person or people brought you into this world. or if even if you're adopted, they chose you, right? They certainly, you were wanted, and no relationship's perfect, especially the ones you don't put the work in on. So I think it's just really about shifting that perspective.
Right, but I think the idea is also the relationships and the drama, whether it's directed at you or other parts of the family, they are not coincidental. That there's actually growth for you from it, and that in some level, although it might not feel like it, it is actually perfect. And again, I don't think this is an easy thought or consciousness to have or maintain, but I would ask our listeners to at least start their thought with this basic acceptance. My family is perfect for me. It does not mean that they're perfect. It doesn't mean that everything they do is perfect, but whatever interactions I'm going to have, whatever interactions I observe, there's actually growth for me. And the fallacy of believing that families are at their best are drama-free is actually wrong. And it's also something wrong to desire, because you need to grow. All of us need to grow all the time. And often it is that family dynamic that is not easy, that has its drama, that is perfectly prepared for us to be able to grow from.
And that includes in-laws, that includes step-parents, that includes the kooky uncle or aunt or whatever. And really, you know, we are speaking from experience. I mean, nobody's above this process.
Well, let me tell you that never in the history of humanity has there ever been a perfect family. When I say perfect, I mean where everybody treats everybody well all
television,
the time.
Yes.
Right, it's just not
and
not reality.
That's the fallacy for romance too, right? It's we have these false illusions based on the pictures that we've watched and seen.
But every family is perfect, right?
For each individual.
Exactly. Which I think is a very, again, like I said, I there's a lot more that we want to share, but I think just to get our heads
to set it up,
around that understanding is a very important first step.
Yeah, and if you do nothing else, I think a shortcut to kind of get there, and this is what really helped me in years past, is that if somebody does something inappropriate or says something hurtful, I actually picture you kind of just, I'll look at you and you'll look at me and we'll just like smile a little bit, because you know exactly what I'm thinking. I know what you're thinking. And then the next thing I'm hearing, before it became popular in the movie Frozen, the children's film, you're always just let it go, man. Let it go.
That's what I say. That's what I sound like.
That's what you say.
Okay.
Let it go. And so then I just hear that and I'm like, all right, you know.
And also, and this is again related to that, which is not to take things personally. If somebody blows
it's
up,
on my list.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, jump
But if
to
somebody
it.
blows up at you, it's almost never about you. There's a reason. There's something going on in their life, in their dynamic that is causing them to react in this way. I think a big part of the negative reactions that we have from family dynamics are when we take whatever they're doing personally to us. But in reality, it's not personal. And like you said, I almost always try to be entertained by it. And not sort of a
you are though. No, it's not
a
in a
mean way.
It's not. But it is if you choose to see it that way, it can be entertaining. What you have to do though is remove your emotions from it and then just be an observer. If you do that, it is quite entertaining.
Right. And not take it personally.
I was with some family this past weekend and there was some drama going on. And one of my sisters like, next time I'm going to bring popcorn. Like she was actually really enjoying it because for once she was at the center of it. But in the book, Four Agreements, author Miguel Ruiz explains why taking things personally sets us up for suffering. And I thought that was kind of a really cool way to put it. If you think about it, it's true. He says, when we take things personally, we feel offended, and our reaction is to defend our beliefs and that creates even further conflict. We make a big drama out of something so little. Ruiz goes on to say, when you truly understand this and take nothing personally, it doesn't matter who gossips about you, because that happens at these gatherings, who blames you, who rejects you, who disagrees with your point of view. Whatever people say doesn't affect you because you're immune to their opinions and their emotional poison. And I wrote about this in Fear is Not an Option. I said something similar. I wrote that nearly every time someone hurts you, lashes out, or says something that makes you feel insecure, it's a manifestation of their own pain. It has very little to do with you, other than that you happen to be in their proximity. Again, that's part of the fuel for the fodder here, because we're in front of each other for a few months. Everyone is fighting their own battle, and conflicts will arise. People will be hurtful or nasty, and yes, it will hurt. Just remember, it's really not about you, it's about them. While you can learn something from the experience, you do not need to accept their judgments.
And what I would add, and it's really related to what we were saying before, is that when and if you view your family as perfect for you, in the sense that it is the perfect practice and growth for you, personally, spiritually, then we can read a book. Four Agreements is a very popular book, and read about the importance of not taking things personally. But one of the benefits of having a relatively drama-filled family relationship is that it's the perfect place to practice. So you can be a very spiritual person, or even somebody who, again, reads spiritual books and knows, oh yeah, great, yeah, it's good to let go and not take things personally. But one of the reasons, and I think, again, it's important to view this, one of the reasons, this is not just during holiday time, but one of the reasons why your family is perfect for you, it's the perfect place for you to practice and grow. And it is often, we can walk down the street and somebody tells us something and maybe we're spiritual enough or strong enough not to take it personally. But when it comes from our parents, siblings, uncles, aunts, we take it more personally. So there's almost no better place for spiritual growth than in the weird family dynamics.
Well, to your point, you have to see the benefit of the process, whether it's struggle, pain, challenges. So for instance, I love cold plunges. It's really it's a mental exercise. Now, why would anybody put themselves through that? I avoided cold water like most of my life. And now I'm
cold
looking
rooms,
for,
cold
right.
air.
I never, and now it's completely mental. Why am I able to do that? Because I believe in the benefit of it, right? If I didn't, and then I feel great afterwards.
That's a very good example.
So if you go into the holiday seasons with that kind of mentality of, I see the benefit, whatever comes my way is an opportunity for my growth, whatever that looks like, then you can change and almost be excited about it. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. It might even be a little painful, but then afterwards, you're going to feel really strong and really powerful.
Exactly. Beautiful.
So I think one of the things is important to talk about, because I think this is a big thing, like, while of course you can't choose your family, just be able to create boundaries.
If I can I just want to go, and we did say this before, but like you said, we don't think we can choose family, which is true. You're born to the parents and siblings you have, but your soul
chose it. Yes.
Chose its
Good
family.
correction.
No, it's not a correction. It's just an addition, right? Because
it's true.
Because I think most people, and you bring everybody the list of their core family, family, parents, siblings, who I don't think there's anybody in the world who would have said, these are the people I would have chosen, right? Maybe it's 90%, 80%, everybody in their own drama and family. But I think it is important to understand that, again, and this is part of the work, to say, no, actually, my soul chose every single person on that list. And as a matter of fact, I think it might be interesting for our listeners right now to take a moment, maybe pause the podcast and go through the list of your family and say, who are the ones that, if you were asked on a simply physical level, who would you not have chosen? Who would you have chosen? And then to say, but
who are you happy to see, like, maybe wouldn't be part of the family
exactly.
anymore. Yeah.
And then have the second thought, which is, okay, but I know my soul chose every single person on this list. Some of them to learn what not to do, some of them to learn what to do, some of them to receive love from, some of them to give love to, and you can make up your own soul's understanding of why it chose this dynamic perfectly. But I think it's a really important, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but could you tell me quickly, if I put you on the spot, how many, not how many and who, but
yeah, I'll give you their names.
No, at the sort of the whole makeup of your family, who are the ones, what percent, again, by including aunts and uncles, right? So it's not, what percent do you think you would have chosen if you were just choosing from a physical
Well, you
place?
know the number. It wouldn't be that high. But not because, it's not about love, right? It's not. It's because I do love my whole family, including yours, right? Because we've been married 27 years almost. And yeah, there's many people that there have been challenges. And by the way, because we've been together so long, there's many people who are no longer part of our family for different reasons, right? But I can look back at every single relationship, and I can also look back at every holiday that we've had, and I can remember drama, sure, but it's not in my heart, and I can see what I learned from it and what it taught me. And a lot of those experiences that were painful really taught me appreciation and gratitude for the love that I do receive from you and our children and others. It taught me that I am resilient. It taught me to believe in myself and really to challenge myself. What do I believe in? To know what I believe, especially when you're faced with opinions that might not be so great, right? So but by the way, I think as you were talking, I was thinking, let me look back for a second, like all of the different holidays and the gatherings. Like I look back at them so fondly. Like even if I remember the drama, I don't feel that there's no pain there. I only remember the highs, right? It's because those things that happened didn't take away from the beauty that I wanted to create. I wanted to create that event for our children, for us. And so I wanted those memories to be long lasting and pleasurable.
That's beautiful. And I think maybe that's another practice for our listeners, which is as you're about to enter into another cycle of family events, family gatherings, holidays, go back to last year, go back to the year before. Think about a few times where there was drama, right? And can you see what you learned from it? Can you see, or maybe what you should have learned
what you
from
could
it? What
now that you
from
feel
it.
less emotional about it because there's been space, right?
Right.
If you look back at it objectively, and by the way, it's not to condone anybody's behavior. It's not, but it's not about that, right? It's just say, okay, what could I have done differently, and then choose that next time. You know, what did I need to learn from that?
What could I have not taken personally? What could I have laughed off? What could I and now and again what, because, and I promise and guarantee every one of our listeners, everything that happened, all that drama that you can look back on was meant to help you grow, was meant to help you learn. And if you don't do that, meaning if you're not able to look back and at least pick off one or two lessons, one or two things you can change from, it's of course going to be more difficult going into another cycle of this. By
the way, I just got the chills because I'm like a little emotional actually. If I look back and like say, what am I? If I look back and say, what am I most proud of in this life? It was to be able to do that, right? Like through
explain.
Through any anything that was thrown at me, or any hardship or like painful thing that was said or done, I was able to reframe it and learn something from it and grow, and then be proud of myself and like who I became. And I look back at the people that did it, and they're living a very different life, you know, and it's not one that they're feeling happy about. And that's not even the point, but it's just like, it's so clear to me because I actually haven't taken time to kind of just look back at my life in that way until I guess this moment in some weird way. But it feels very purposeful.
Beautiful.
Then.
Thank you for being so honest and emotional.
So I think that people often think that creating boundaries is the thing that they need to do to navigate these holidays successfully. And that's kind of dangerous. And I want to express why. Is that when you put it out and you explain it this way, it becomes super clear.
But you do agree that there are times where there should be boundaries.
I'm going to unpack it, Michael.
Okay.
So when we think of setting boundaries, typically we think of it in terms of ourselves, what we need, what makes us feel seen, heard, what helps us feel safe. From here, we draw boundary lines around ourselves. And that's more protection and guarding ourselves. There's not a lot of transformation necessarily in that. So let me keep going. It's a defensive consciousness. It's about putting up a wall to protect ourselves from other people's behaviors. And from my experience, setting boundaries with that consciousness is a losing battle, because you also miss out on the things you need to learn about yourself. It is reactive often. The emotion leading that is ego for ourselves. So there is a better way. I'm not going to just leave you there. No, but sometimes we do need to create boundaries. Okay,
right. I mean, because you and I both have done this, and we do feel that it has its time and place, right? When there's somebody who is actually a consistent negative effect on the family dynamic or on the individual.
Yes, but my point is that if, for instance, let's say you have an uncle who keeps spewing conspiracy theories every time you're together, are you telling them to stop?
That
is not going to, whatever the thing is. Even somebody who's harming you, if you say stop it, sometimes you actually do need to voice it. I 1,000% agree. But the first thing that also has to happen, there has to be an internal change. You create the boundary within. So my point is, it's not so much what you put out there or what you say or your clear line and division. It has to be there and drawn, but mentally. And then it has to be internally. What are you willing to tolerate or not? So that if somebody treats you a certain way, you become clear about how much you're going to let those words penetrate you, or how much it's going to affect what you believe, right? Because you can't control anybody else's behavior ever. And sometimes you can't control if they're going to come around. Like, we all have those people that are invited, and like, who invited them? They always create the problem. But that's not going to, right? Because I think sometimes we can act in ways that are cruel also when we make it only about restricting them. And again, it's not going to be successful.
And of course, there's a whole gamut of behavior, right? There are certain things on the extreme that definitely should not be tolerated, right? But right?
Right, 1,000%.
And then there's a whole continuum of what people make a big deal out of maybe that they shouldn't. And I think that's a perfect example, which I do think, and unfortunately I see this all over social media where people are giving different opinions than one might have, and that causes a blow up, and that's silly, right?
Well, so the uncle example, right, with the conspiracy theories, what John Gottman says if you want to kind of have somebody hear you, you say their name out loud. And I've done this. I do this. It's funny because after I read this, I was like, okay, I do that exact thing. And then I say, I love you. And I want to hear what you have to say, but I don't feel like this is a conversation we should have now. Or I love you and I respect what you're saying, but it's not a conversation I want to participate in. And I think that that's a healthy boundary to set, right? But there's other times where it's really about removing yourself. And there are 3 ways to set boundaries. And I thought this is a really good way kind of to check yourself. And this is according to best-selling author Nedra Glover Tawwab. It's her book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace, a guide to reclaiming yourself. So the 3 things are, the first is do an honest assessment of what you're willing to tolerate. Because again, I think the cell has to be internal first before it's you just projecting, no.
And if I could add to that, when you say what you can tolerate, I would say what the best
you want to participate in, perhaps.
No, I was going to say what the best version of you should tolerate, right? Because a person could say, I'm just using an example. If I hear one person say, that he likes Donald Trump, for example, I'm leaving the room.
Well, that's fine. Right? Somebody's table, yeah.
Right. My point is, no, actually, you shouldn't. I think the spiritual thing would say, okay, that. So I think you have to be very careful, even when you're creating that list of what are the things that are acceptable and not acceptable. Try to be, you can't just using the word, be as spiritual as possible. Not what you currently would like or not like to accept and not accept, but what should be. How do you, I would say, put it this way, I would expand, make yourself a little bit uncomfortable in what those boundaries are, right? Because we know people that will say, oh no, this is my, I will not tolerate this. It's a very long list. Well, maybe that's not the best version of you. Maybe that's not how you grow. Maybe you actually grow by okay, there's 10 things you say you can't tolerate. Maybe tolerate 2 out of the 10, right? So I think it's very important what she's saying to create that, to be clear with yourself. But I would add to that, I think the spiritual work there is to say, okay, how do I expand myself? How do I grow myself a little bit more? Because you grow by tolerating, and again, not on the extreme sides, right? By having human dignity to more things than maybe you had yesterday, the day before, or last year. Mm-hmm. And by the way, and this is a little bit off topic, but I think it is important for our listeners to know that you grow. One of the tests or important ways to assess your spiritual growth is how many more people can I have compassion to? How many more things can I tolerate in others' behavior and still love them and still be around them than I did last year or the year before?
Which is basically, you're saying, remove judgment.
And expand tolerance, I think, because it's
especially in this day and age.
Yeah, because there's so many things that people have such strong opinions on.
I was with my sisters and my mom yesterday, and we walked into a store, and we just had a question. And there was a woman in line, and I guess the lady was paying for something, but they weren't talking. Like, the woman working there looked at me. She's like, "Hi." I said, "Hi." So I said, "I want to know what services you have." She's like, "Here's a card." And we were going to walk out. My sister stood like maybe 4 feet behind this woman that was there. She says out loud, "I don't like when people stand behind me. I don't like it." And I was like, but it was shocking because there was no interaction, right? And so my sister was, and I'm looking at her, I'm like thinking, don't even say anything, because this woman just looked like she wanted to have a fight, right? And then she goes on like, "I just want to," like, just was so out of line. But I'm saying my point is, in today's day and age, people are just looking for reasons to be impatient, to be intolerant for no good reason. We're just like, what's going on here? But that's the narrative.
Right. So I think what we're saying is an important part of, right, if we're viewing our interactions with family, this is true in our interactions in the world. How am I growing in tolerance?
By the way, even at the checkout line, buying your groceries for the holidays or whatever, you're going to have plenty of, everybody is on high alert right now. That's the truth. The second thing is, when you're feeling overextended, say so. Because we can't expect people to know what our capacity is. So I'm sure, again, spiritually, yes, you want to extend it, because this is where it gets tricky, right? You want to be spiritual about it. You want to say yes. But then also, if you keep saying yes when you don't feel like you have the bandwidth, people take advantage of that.
There has to be balance, and you have to know yourself and exactly have balance, but also, like, as in all things, assess whether this is something, again, because we often have these conversations with people, and often it's around family where, I will just not. Okay, you know yourself, and you're probably right, but maybe can you give another 10%, right? Mm-hmm. No, if his mother says one more time, no, again, and maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, and there is no black or white, but all I'm saying is that to grow and to change, how are you expanding that? Maybe his mother says that one more time, no, maybe allow her 2 more times to say it, right? My point is, I think, and again, I don't know, different people are at different places in their relationships with family, in-laws, and so on and so forth. But I think it's a mistake to say these are my rigid boundaries, right? Again, and you're probably right in setting these boundaries, but forget about whether you will change or won't change the behavior, whether it's completely wrong or somewhat right, just for me, for you, for the individual. It's not a coincidence that I'm around this person who has no boundaries and says these terrible, whatever, silly things, stupid things. But for me, I want to grow in my ability to be a little bit more accepting.
And the third, which is related, is say no to requests that you don't actually have the time or energy to fulfill. But that really also, so often we say yes to things we don't want to do. We go places we don't want to go to. You don't have to say yes to everything, because if you show up as not the best version of yourself, it's never going to end well either. Right. One other thing I want to talk about is estrangement. It's a topic we really haven't discussed, but there's usually somebody in every family that they've cut ties with, and then nobody ever talks about it, or it's like the uncomfortable thing, but it's prevalent. According to the Journal of Marriage and Family in April 2023, it said 26% of adult children reported estrangement from fathers at one time or another. Do you think that's a high percentage?
Quarter at one, but it's not forever, right? So you're saying at one point or another.
Yeah.
I don't know, it sounds just about right.
And then 6% had cut ties with their mothers at some point, which I thought was interesting.
Is that true?
I was shocked.
Where's this from?
Journal of Marriage and Family.
That sounds low. That sounds real low.
We tend to think it's the mother.
No, I just think.
I don't know. I thought that was interesting. And it's not clear when it says adult children, is it male or female? Is it male to male, female to female, right? I was curious about that. Anyway, on any given day, 1 out of 10 children are currently estranged from at least one of their parents. I was surprised by that. And I was actually saddened, to be honest with you. Joshua Coleman, author of Rules of Engagement, theorizes that social media is to blame. I thought this was interesting. He said Instagram influencers, joined by an army of therapists, have encouraged young adults toward the view that you don't owe your parents anything, and that your first obligation.
Oh, I have a lot to say about that.
I know. I was a trigger. And your first obligation is to you and your happiness. And really,
that's terrible. But he's just saying, obviously he's not agreeing with it.
He's not agreeing with it.
That's interesting.
And I think it's really important, because the relationship you have with your parents is the first relationship you've ever had. It's the longest one, and it should be the most fulfilling. And they are the ones that influence you from day one. Now, I understand parents are going to get it wrong. We all make mistakes. And of course, there is the disclaimer if your parent was abusive, or of course, like that. We're not talking about that, but we're talking about parents who love you deeply and did their best, or trying to do their best. And it might not be good enough on some days. I understand that. But this idea that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let me say this again, like you said, with the caveat that there are on the extremes, some parents.
Horrific abuse. We're not talking about that.
We're talking about the rest of the world, which is majority. I have seen.
Like normal tensions and conflicts. That's
yes. And also parents who weren't equipped. I cannot tell you.
Or were raised by parents that were withholding to them, right? What were their models?
How many times I've had conversations with people in all age ranges where they've, because of their spiritual studies and work, say, I realize now they were not equipped. They didn't want to be not the best parents. They wanted to be the best parents they could. They just were not equipped. And what I wanted to say as well is that I know many more children who should have a lot more appreciation for their parents than people who have the proper amount of appreciation of their parents. So just because your
So what
narrative,
would you say? Can we unpack what would be the proper amount of appreciation for the parent? And specifically what, I mean, I know my opinion, but I want to hear is what do you think they should be appreciative for?
well,
So it's two-part
first of all,
question.
that physically would not be here if not for them, right? Start there. Second,
Well, some people hate their lives and it's because of you I'm here. I'm just saying.
Yeah, second, most people were taken care of by their parents physically, right? They took care of their whatever, school, food, house. And then I know, and this is the where I really, it really bothers me when you see kids who are older and actually did get a lot of physical support from their parents, still don't feel that it's necessary to, because they take it for granted. You're my parents, of course you should, pay for my college, and of course you should help me
For the rest of my life.
Yeah, and the point is, and this is the when it's most upsetting, even when that is the case, where their parents even continue, still you find so many children who are not appreciative of that. So I we've spoken about this a lot over the past few days. We know, like I said, I think many more children who should have more appreciation than children who have the right or too much appreciation. And therefore, I would, and there's something that you've said often since your father passed, and I think it's so true that when usually, and again, there's always extreme examples, when a parent is no longer in this physical world, no matter how great of a parent or not great of a parent they were, no matter what mistakes they made, and all parents make mistakes, some greater, some less, you're going to miss them almost always.
Well, it's an interesting thing that happens is when they're no longer here, you tend not to remember so much the bad. Remember all the opportunities that you could have done more. I mean, that was my experience for everybody that I've loved and lost to this day, not just parents. It was that.
Yeah. And therefore, I would say maybe one of the last thing that I'd share with our listeners is you come to family gatherings, of course, always.
Wait, your last idea. I didn't finish with what I wanted to finish this one point.
Okay.
1 second.
Oh, you got into appreciation. That's right. I thought, okay.
Just quickly, Coleman found the number one reason the parent-child estrangement is. What would you guess is the issue of conflict?
Two that come to mind are either emotionally you weren't there for me, or physically I need you to, you didn't, or you're not giving me this.
Well, here's what's interesting about your answer. So you would think you'd want the parent involved, right? Based on how you answered it.
Right.
So what he found in his research is intrusiveness.
Interesting.
Very interesting, right? But I think there is something to that. They feel like
more than
parents
50,
are too intrusive and
more
don't
than 50%.
respect their adult children's boundaries. So we go back to boundaries again, right? And that's why we started with boundaries and we ended up here again. The boundary has to be more about you knowing yourself and what you are willing to participate in or not, and making that relationship healthy. Because if you don't have a healthy relationship with your parents, it means there's more work for you to do in creating that health, right?
I was having a conversation with somebody who, it's a married couple, and the mother of one of the couple has a great relationship with their child, but not the best relationship with the wife of the child. And
the child is close to the father.
So a mother and a son, and the son's wife, right? So that's the triangle we're talking about. So the daughter-in-law,
yes, there you go.
Okay. Is triggered terribly, like in extreme ways, every time the mother-in-law is around.
Walks in the room.
Which isn't always, right? But it's not that often. It's not like they're together every day, every week. And my message was, and I strongly believe this to be true, because again, we're talking about somebody who's who loves their children and their family, and supports their children and their family. And yeah, of course, they actually don't have, they're intrusive, right? They're intrusive. Exactly. That's the perfect word. But not in a way where the daughter-in-law can say, oh, that's funny. They're not doing anything that is so harmful that should rise to the point that they're so triggered by it. And therefore, to your point, I would strongly, strongly recommend, again, in this case, I did, if that's the dynamic you're feeling, there's probably a lot of work you need to do. Why is it bothering you so much? Why is it You're an adult. You have your own family. You get a visit every 4 months from an in-law. And they say, oh, maybe your child should wear this shirt. and that triggers you. You can't handle the whole day, the whole week. Maybe the spiritual work that you need to do.
And also look at, I mean, every time I see somebody, why is this mother, I know who you're talking about. Why is she being intrusive? Because she just wants to be appreciated and valued and recognized. Right. So if you see her want, you see the desire, maybe she doesn't express it right.
And we agree that she doesn't.
Maybe she is too pushy and she's bossy. But why is she behaving like that? So try to give her love, right? Try to hear. You don't have to put the shirt on the child. You can do it maybe the one time a year you see her or whatever, or not. But it's not even about that, So I just think that there's such a correlation there.
Absolutely.
And then the second thing is Coleman cautions against getting caught up in expecting things to be fair. And that's a big one too, right? On the surface, fairness seems innocuous, but focusing on fairness almost always leads to resentment.
But by the way,
because it's not about what's fair or not, or what isn't fair.
But also it's what you think is fair, right? Because by the way, if your father or mother or family member is doing something, it's because they actually think that that's the right thing or the fair thing. They could be completely wrong, or you might be completely wrong, or you might be a little bit wrong, but it doesn't even matter, right? It doesn't even matter.
It's about being able to freely give and receive without expectations. Yeah. So what this ultimately leads to is appreciation.
Yeah. And I would say probably the most important idea that I would ask all of our listeners to go into their family gatherings with, and especially this time of year, but of course always, that none of us have enough appreciation for our parents, and especially those of us who experience losing parents. You realize that, of course, there are many things that you were not happy about, you were disappointed about. You can make a long list, but at the end of the day, and I know, Monica, you speak about this often, when your parents aren't there, what you're going to feel bad about, what you're going to regret, hopefully not, if you listen to this podcast, is that you did not express, feel, live enough gratitude and appreciation for them. And therefore, I would ask all of our listeners, as you go into this time of year, spend time with maybe your parents or certainly family, find the ways, not because the person says, oh yeah, I'm appreciative. No. Find the ways to be more appreciative. So don't just do the thought, I'm listening to this podcast, yeah, I should be appreciative, and I think I'm pretty appreciative. No, I'm telling you, guarantee that you can behave with more appreciation. Make a decision. What is the one thing you're going to do more? What is the one thing you're going to express more? What is the one behavior you're actually going to add, change, modify? Because you understand how important it is to awaken appreciation for them.
1,000%. And to your point, I think I did this last year, and I was thinking about it going into the holiday season as well. What I do in those moments, not even if just when I walk in a room and we're at the holidays, to awaken appreciation and gratitude, I think about the people that are no longer with us and and I visualize them in the room.
Oh, beautiful.
And what they
would never share that with me.
Yeah. And I'm going to get emotional again. Wow. And what they would be enjoying in that moment, right? Like I could hear their laugh, or what they'd be eating or drinking, or where they would find pleasure. And the fact that they can't really, really deeply awakens a sense of gratitude in me, that like, wow, I can choose to make this experience whatever I want. And wow, how amazing is it that I get to choose that, I get to experience this day. And that puts everything into perspective.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Monica, for again being so open and emotional and honest. So we want to remind our listeners, especially during this time of year, maybe you have a little bit more time off from work, to...
By the way, I even pick out their outfits and everything. It's like
really?
in great detail.
I like that. You're so cute. Send all your emails, appreciations, stories, comments to Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. We are inspired by your stories, by your sharing with us. Make sure you do that. And somebody actually mentioned this to me today after sending me a text. If you have a question whether you should or shouldn't, you definitely should send emails, send your appreciation, send your stories to us, to Monica and Michael at spirituallyhungry.life. As always, share this podcast, especially if I would do is any family member but especially those that you might have some conflict with or some uncomfortable situation with, send them this podcast
before the holidays.
Right now. And go to Apple Podcasts, write 5-star reviews, share this podcast with everybody you know. And as always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Stay spiritually hungry.